REVIT has two main column types. One is considered a structural column, the other is considered an architectural column. The purpose of this exercise is to review the differences in the properties between those two different kinds of columns. We can start off by coming underneath the Architecture tab, finding the pull-down menu for column, then selecting Structural Column off of the list. The first difference between a structural column and an architectural column is the actual structural properties and dimensions of that column. In this instance, we'll be able to find that underneath Edit Type once the command has been selected. Here we can find the dimensions associated with the column, as well as area, weight. That's the kind of information that architectural columns do not contain. You can select on OK to this. Next, over here on the ribbon, we can see that there's two different kinds of columns that we can place. One is a vertical column and the other is a slanted column. All architectural columns by default are automatically vertical. If you want an architectural column to slant, you have to model it that way in the family editor. Structural columns are not that way. Structural columns you can have be vertical or slanted simply by clicking on the icon up here at the top of the screen. Another difference between an architectural column and a structural column is here in the options bar, where we can see this is 1-click and 2-click. Structural columns, when slanted is chosen, will allow us to click once for the base and second for the top of the column. By doing it this way, we'll be able to specify the point where that column will begin, as well as the second point in order to be able to create the slant. Architectural columns natively inside of their properties already have that built in. If we select back on vertical, we'll see that the only option that's available to us now is going to be either depth or height. Make sure that height is chosen for this exercise so that the column will go up when it comes time to draw it. Another special feature associated with just structural columns is @grids and @columns. @columns will automatically center structural columns anywhere an architectural column is located at. @grids will automatically center the structural columns any place a structural grid is located at. Let's go ahead and take a look at grids. So select @grids off of the ribbon, zoom in slightly to the small structural grid that we have drawn in place, left click once and hold the mouse button down, highlight over the structural grid. When we let go of the button, this particular column size and type will then get placed at each location where this structural grid is crossing each other. So let go of your button. You'll immediately see each of those columns in place and click the big green check mark. That's a feature that architectural columns do not have. They cannot automatically attach themselves to structural grids because they're simply architectural and they're not structural in their nature. If we would move a structural column though, up here and have it touch a wall, and then select any place along the wall. One of the things that you'll notice about the structural column, if you hit escape a couple of times to get out of the command after placement, is that the structural column will just sit there. It doesn't change, it doesn't have any property differences associated with it. On the other hand, this is one of the major differences with architectural columns. If we look underneath Architecture, click the pull-down list and select the architectural column, the fact this is rectangular doesn't really matter. This could be any style of architectural column, no matter how ornate, and it would still have these properties when it comes time to select against this wall. Architectural columns, unlike their structural counterparts, if they touch a layer of material, they'll automatically take on the properties of that layer of material that they're touching along walls and surfaces. This allows us to do such things as pilasters very quickly and easily using architectural columns. You'll also notice that with architectural columns that we don't have all the rest of those tools that we had available with our structural columns. That's one of the major differences or advantages to using structural columns, is that they have extra tools for quick and easy placement. But the advantage of the architectural column is that whenever you place them up against an object, they'll take on the properties and materials of that particular object type. So, architectural columns allow you to place them and they'll take on the properties of any object that they select, while structural columns will allow you to place them along column grids or even inside of existing architectural columns by selecting on the appropriate tool. In this case, I'll select @columns, select on the inside of this particular architectural column, and click the big green check mark in order to place our structural column inside of it.